Welcome to one more edition of Politics and Right. I'm Egberto Willis, your host. Thank you so kindly for being with us today. We have the honor of having Keisha Blair. Miss Blair is a trained economist and has experience in the public, private, and not-for-profit sector. She was part of the Prime Minister's delegations to World Economic Forum in 2018, as well as the East Asia Summit in Singapore. She led events such as the Most Powerful Women Summit in Montreal, Canada, and the Fortune Global Forum. She is a graduate of the Executive Leadership Program at Harvard University's John F. Kennedy School of Government and has an MSc in Public Policy from Carleton University in Ottawa. She is the author of Holistic Wealth, 36 Life Lessons to Help You Recover from Disruption, Find Your Life Purpose, and Achieve Financial Freedom, and is the founder of Institute on Holistic Wealth. Welcome to Politics Done Right, Miss Blair. How are you doing today?
I'm good, and thank you so much for having me.
Well, you know, we'll have it no other way. Anyway, after getting your information that you touch on all the topics that we discuss here at Politics Done Right. So we're happy to have you. Thank you so kindly for being here with us. How are you doing?
I'm good. And how are you?
I am fine. Well, anyhow, let's get started. What's going on in the economy as you see it today throughout the world?
Yeah, like there's so much going on, so much economic disruption, and I think we're all feeling it in our pockets. We see the rising food prices, rising oil prices. There's high inflation. Interest rates are going up as governments try to stem the high inflation by using that tool of monetary policy. And so people will see their mortgages going up, they'll see the cost of living going up, and it will seem tight because salaries have been stagnant. But that's what's going on. And we know with the Russia-Ukraine war, that has caused several, disruptions to transportation, supply chain disruptions. Several products such as wheat, with the Ukraine being the world's breadbasket, have been affected. So I think that's what we're seeing. There have been predictions that it will get worse. We might be going into a recession towards the end of the year.
Let me stop you there because I hear those predictions all around. What are your thoughts and not the predictions? Because as an economist, what's your own belief as far as when you look at these stats that are really out there? Because I have some myself.
Yeah, okay. I definitely. So I do think that we will end up in some sort of a recession, based on when you look at history. And I did mention in my book too that, we've seen these crises before. I did mention the 2000 to 2009 period as the lost decade. And I had mentioned in the book too that I'm hoping that this one won't become another lost decade, but it's looking likelier and likelier given what's happening globally and geopolitically. Now, I do think we are headed there. But we have to watch to see what's going to happen. But as an economist, the signs are there, and it's a hard balance, right? With increasing interest rates, it's a hard balance with what's going on with war, with COVID-19. There's so many factors at play.
Ms. Blair, I am not an economist. I'm an engineer, but who studied economics in college as well. And one of the things that differs between, let's say, engineering and let's say the stockbrokers, et cetera, is we don't buy into what I like to call non-math. And I have you on as one of our, of a leading economist. We're also having Richard Wolff on and a couple other economists on. And what I've been trying to do is probe economists as to what I call the insanity factor of our economic system, where we go through these things. I mean, you just mentioned in your monologue there that you hope this is not a lost decade, but based on how things are going, it just could be again. And unfortunately, based on how things work, I agree with you, sadly. But the insanity of doing things over and over again the same way puzzles me. So my question to you is, isn't it time for us to revamp the current model the current economic system that we have to one that actually makes sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm all for economics getting a refresh. I'm all for the economy getting a refresh. It's something I talk about in holistic wealth and why I even came up with holistic wealth. If we look at it at the economy from a macro perspective, there's so much income inequality. We have a racial wealth gap. We have certain groups that are shut out of this capitalist system. It's one of those pet peeves of mine too. And I see you smiling because it's an economy that's exploitative. We pull, 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 and we're not giving enough back. We're not giving enough back. And the system hasn't worked for a lot of folks. It hasn't worked for a lot of our minority communities, for our women, children, the most vulnerable among us. And so I definitely think we need a redistribution. I'm all for, when we talk about the racial wealth gap, we talk about reparations. I'm all for, policies like that, because I believe that there's some wrongs that weren't right, that weren't made right before. And we're going down a path that's not sustainable. COVID-19 showed us that it's not sustainable, right? And we look at the interplay between wealth, health, or mental health and all of that. It's showing us, and even the environment, it's showing us that we were not on a path to sustainability. We were doing the opposite. So definitely, it's one of those things where we definitely need to not think about going back to that old normal. We need to think about creating this new normal and what we want our post-pandemic lives to look like.
Now, where I think it's so important for what you write, what you promote, what you talk about to our audience and others, especially since you have the pedigree, the credentials to say it. I don't, you do, is to that people understand that an economy isn't something that is divine, or our economic system isn't divine. It is actually man-made. And notice I didn't say person-made. I said man-made for certain people who are invited into the game. And we need more people like you out there, not just activists like myself, letting people know how this is an economy that's actually behaving exactly as it should, don't you think? Or exactly as it was designed.
Exactly as it was designed. And it's unbelievable the level of income inequality that we have right now. And I mentioned in the book that it's the number one economic problem. It's the number one problem that we have in the world. When you look at the growth in incomes of billionaires during the first half of COVID-19, when you look at certain companies and how they profited from this, it's just unbelievable. And so we've set up an economy where a few benefit and the vast majority don't. We saw where the deaths took place. We saw the people who were most vulnerable out there, the essential workers, transportation drivers, mechanics, people going out there and facing it and dying, while others were more protected. Now, I do believe that we can, if there's that will, we can shape our economy to be more inclusive and to be more equitable. And I think that's the route we need to go when we look at our post-pandemic lives. We can absolutely reshape, we can absolutely start to right some of those wrongs. And we can start to look at having a post-COVID economy that's more equitable.
Ms. Blair, in the context of your book, then, because a lot of this is covered, what can we do to empower folks? What are the 36 life lessons, or at least some of the 36 life lessons that folks should actually take into making a betterment for us all?
Yeah, so it can be looked at the personal level as well as the state level. And when we talk about, let's say, macro, the state level, in the back of the book, I have this holistic wealth index that is kind of like a framework that organizations can use, that state level governments can use.
I don't want to interrupt, but I have to. I don't want to interrupt, but I have to. What exactly is holistic wealth?
Yeah, so holistic wealth is the interconnection between these critical pillars. So it's the financial wealth, it's the mental and emotional health, it is your physical health, and your life purpose and spirituality and relationships as well in that. So all of that, I think, is that interplay between all of those factors, and why we need to look at our economy more holistically. We need to look at our personal finances and our lives more holistically. We've seen the great resignation wave. That's also part of that organic trend towards, I want to live a life that's more authentic. I don't want to be just a number or stat. I want to live that life that gives me that balance, that joy, that meaning. And that's what we've seen, some trends here that have been
So true.
basically predicated on this whole holistic wealth concept now for some time. It's just that it wasn't there before in terms of a book, and it wasn't there in terms of our vocabulary or way of communicating it. But all the trends that we're seeing now, with the passion economy worth over 80 billion, with the great resignation wave, with people looking at how they can live a more meaningful life. I mean, COVID-19 has spurred that. So when we think about holistic wealth, when we think about organizations, when we think about governments around the world, this is a tool, this is a framework that we can all use to shape this post-pandemic era. And it's so funny, in the book I talk about a little about economics too, and how we focus too much on our so you have these moral resources and the economic resources, and we focus too much on our economic resources, not enough on our moral resources. And our moral resources are our relationships, they're our people, our labor force, the partnerships, the way we collaborate to help each other, the way we reach out to help each other. Those are the moral resources that we'll need to pull in. We need to have an economy that's more focused on our moral resources when we shape our post-pandemic world, rather than those economic resources that we always think about. And so what we think about is in extractive terms, in exploitative terms. When we think about it in more moral terms, then I think we'll come closer to what we want that life to look like, what we want our economies to look like.
Miss Blair, I mean, I could not have said that any better. You're speaking directly to everything that I preach. Thank you. I mean, you do not know what it means to me to have an economist in the Western world say that. I'm going to have Richard Wolff on. I don't know if you've ever heard of Richard Wolff, right here in the United States. He teaches at not Yale, Princeton, I think it is, and he's going to be on with us. And he speaks the same language. And I've been trying to get more economists that can come out to the folks and let them understand that it's not solely about that economic piece that you speak about. Because
Right.
think about this, Miss Blair. Think about this. We have in corporations right now the executives that what the workers have been going through over the last several years.
Yes.
And we also know that corporate profits are sky high, even in
Yeah.
they are sky high. And we have all these guys sitting pretty up there saying, well, I got me a great bonus. I mean, look how great we were able to increase profits, increase productivity, not realizing that that wasn't you doing it.
Right.
It was those guys down there doing it. But you're taking the spoils. Our economy is designed to be extractive, and the ones that don't work do it. And
Yeah.
it's folks like yourself and the book that you promote that promotes bringing people up that makes the difference. So I mean, you don't know how happy I am to have yet another economist validating particular these these particular issues. So tell me, how can we, first of all, I mean, it is hard for those who are in Panama, we would say, viviendo la vida loca, living that life. How do we get those that are living that life understand that what they're doing really is promoting what I call antiseptic slavery of the masses? How do we allow them to see that?
Yeah, I think it's just what we're doing here now. And it's unbelievable because I think what they're doing isn't sustainable long term. I think
Thank you.
workers are
Thank
going to,
you.
it isn't sustainable. It's an unsustainable model. You have to look at, you only have to look at what's happening with Amazon, with Tesla. Workers are going to wake up they're going to realize that this has not served them. It's not serving their families. This is becoming life and death. And some of the decisions that workers are making right now, whenever they step out to go to work, have been life and death during COVID-19. And COVID-19 has really shed light on that, the fact that it really is unsustainable. So they're building company models that are unsustainable, and they're building models that no longer work and will no longer work. That's why we have things like the passion economy, where workers are getting up on, Etsy, they're going on Shopify to create their own businesses, they're going on different platforms to create their own business and really tap into their passions, into their skills and what they can provide. And so I think we're going to see a blossoming of more of that. The great resignation wave, when it started in 2020, people were saying, oh, maybe this will fizzle. As economists, we have not seen it fizzle. It's gotten worse. It's gotten more structured, more solidified. And I think it's something that they're going to have to wake up and realize. And companies they are waking up and they are realizing. So let's hope that it's for the good of all, it's for the benefit of all workers, that they do wake up and realize it's not sustainable. And of course, there are people out there, other economists like myself, who are also talking about this, trying to raise more awareness. You're also talking about it, and people are talking amongst themselves. I think we will see some change, hopefully for the better for all of us, so that we have a more economic model, a sustainable economic model.
Gar Alperovitz, he's an economist, a professor out here at, I think, I don't remember I don't remember where it's at. He's a historian as well, which university he works with. But he started to talk about the collective, where instead of Exxon being run by all these executives, etc., that it's they have a collective body, and they grow together or they fail together, and if they fail, they fail, if they grow, they grow, but everybody partake of the spoils. It is, as you said, it is something that I think, given the unsustainability of the economic system that we have, that we're going to have to get to. Now, fighting that 10% that controls everything, those that we call the managerial level, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, they're powerful. They're the ones that control the media. They're the ones that control everything. So let me give an example. Programs like mine actually get throttled. So I don't know if you know the term throttle on the internet, so we get throttled. So what we do is we have to go around it using old technologies and all of that to get our information to others. And it just slows down the process of educating the masses. But again, what you do, what you write, what you promote, and what others do, I think it is so essential for us to eventually break that glass. So before we go, tell us a little bit about in more specific to your book now, as opposed to just specific to what we're talking about. Talk a little bit about your book and why you think folks should get it, what they can get out of your book.
Yeah, absolutely. So the book is Holistic Wealth, 36 Life Lessons to help you recover from disruption, find your life purpose, and achieve financial freedom. And as the book title suggests, there are 36 chapters there that cover off a whole bunch of different lessons that help you to really, find meaning, purpose in life, and of course, in terms of that financial pillar, to achieve financial freedom. And I think, with what we started off talking about with the economy and the high inflation and people really feeling it in their pockets, it's a really good time for us to focus on, the financial piece, on the mental health piece, and all of that's covered in the book. And there's strategies in there that people can use in terms of getting out of debt, how you budget, your money management, investing for the long term. And of course, there are pieces in there in terms of, like finding a personal mission and how you write out your personal mission statement and living with purpose and meaning. And so this book has been, very dear to me. It stems from my personal story of having been widowed at only 31 and having to go through that grief and really, go through that disruption and master it. And so there's a whole thesis in the book about Mastering the Art of Recovery from Disruption. And I know we're all collectively in that space right now, even if you haven't lost a loved one, or even if you haven't, gone through any major disruption aside from COVID, that we are still in this collectively. We are still in this period of disruption where we're looking for answers, and we're looking for a way out. We're looking for a way to craft that life that we really want. So this book is a tool in that toolkit. It's very good for really getting practical tips and strategies for crafting that, living a life of holistic wealth. And so it's available everywhere online right now, and in bookstores, and people can just grab a copy. It's also a great gift to give. And it's so in line with what we've been talking about, and how people can really take hold of their lives, get their power back. Because I know with this economy, a lot of people feel powerless. A lot of people feel like they've lost control of their lives because of the type of income inequality and the wealth gap that we've seen. But here are some strategies here that can make you feel more empowered to take the decisions you need to own your life and to take back some of that control. So I'm happy to share it, and I'm glad that we can have this conversation, because there are things we can do. It might feel like everything's out of control, but we do still have a lot of control in terms of our own personal lives.
Let me tell you, I never feel out of control. I always feel in control and going out there and getting a damn thing done. So, and that's what I try to promote on my program, and that's why I have people who think the same way. Like you went out there and did something about it to empower others. So I think that is just wonderful that's out there, and I definitely want to promote not only personalities, but books and all of that, that's empowering people, as opposed to being, as you mentioned before, that extractive, taking something and leaving nothing back. The last question I always ask my distinguished guests is, what would you have liked me to ask you that I didn't?
Wow, that's a tough one.
It's usually so.
It is tough. I can't think of anything. And I can't think of anything right now. I think the points that I brought forward are points that were perfect for the show and for people listening in. But yeah, I think it's been great. I can't think of anything.
Well, you know what? That means I kind of did my job. So look, I appreciate that. Look, Miss Keisha Blair, a trained economist and with extensive experience, and the author of Holistic Wealth: 36 Life Lessons to Help You Recover from Disruption, Find Your Life Purpose, and Achieve Financial Freedom. It's been my honor to have you on Politics Done Right. Thank you so kindly for having been here.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number one, subscribe to our channel, and number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.